You have so kindly come from abroad. Uh, mm, we again welcome you. You have been there at the grand function yesterday. You know, the world has changed, but the problem with microphone hasn't. Okay. Good morning again. I hope you can hear me. I have this very proud privilege of moderating this session on behalf of Prothomalo. As you have attended the function last night, it was a very widely attended event, and we all celebrated the occasion. We have a large number of friends from the media of Bangladesh, so I would like to suggest that the language is open. Somebody who prefers to speak in Bangla, we would like to not stop him or her, but preferred language would be English, because it is really an exchange of views, a dialogue between our foreign guests and the media professionals from Bangladesh. The topic is challenges before journalism. Now, this is not saying the challenges that existed before journalism came about, but the challenges that we are now facing in journalism. I think our experience we have in Bangladesh, we have some very eminent editors from South Asia, and of course some from abroad, from Europe. We were hoping to have one from the Los Angeles Times, but he came up to Doha, then flew back. So Europe is represented here, and South Asia very much. And we have the IPI, which is the global institution, which we hope will give us a global perspective on things. But basically, challenges that we now face as journalists all over the world. I think there are issues of values, there are issues of professionalism, there are issues of freedom, there are issues of ethics, and also there is a whole new area of challenge that is coming from technology. The whole area of digital media, online, social media, they're really bringing to the fore challenges before journalism. And both print and audiovisual, we have representatives from the television media here. I'm not aware if there is anybody from the online media or just digital platforms who are here. I don't think so. So this is basically print primarily, with some representation from television. And we are really trying to understand what are the challenges before us as professionals. We have here very eminent journalists from abroad, and we would like to know about your challenges. We have BBC here, we have IPI, we have some media watchdog bodies, and mostly we have editors from South Asia, journalists from South Asia. So my task is a little intimidating, because we have so many people here. How I think we will all be able to have our say within the limitations of time. So number one request is be extremely brief, but of course our priority will go to our foreign guests. You may take a few minutes, but I would like to request my colleagues from Bangladesh to be very precise and absolutely direct to the point. None of you need to thank Prothomalo for organizing this. We take your thanks in the beginning, and so that we can save some time. So I would like to begin the discussion by inviting the editor of Hindu, Mukund. Are you paying attention? So Mukund, you have the honor of starting the discussion flow. I don't know why I chose you, but maybe I like your name.
Yeah, I mean, the subject is a little broad, and you mentioned quite a few challenges, so maybe I'll just focus on one, because English language daily. You might, simply because English is the currency of the, the sort of elite, you might hope that people might move from, languages in other languages to English, and so on. And online revenues are extremely small, much, much smaller than they are in the West. So I think this is the big question I think that most Indian newsrooms are going to be faced with. And I think the question is whether we've had this opportunity to experience what's happened in the West. We're better positioned, I think, to deal with this. The question is, how much do you invest in this space, since the returns are very small? And how do you deal with the disruption? And I'm increasingly beginning to believe, and this is an idea I'm just going to toss up because I think these questions are quite, I mean, these issues are known to everyone, but I'm increasingly beginning to believe that we've got to find a journalism that makes people pay. And this effort of chasing eyeballs is on the web is actually destroying a sort of more conventional and more, in my way, a more valuable form of doing journalism. I mean, we have clickbait headlines, we have inaccurate things, we have websites that sort of make no distinction between opinion and news. So there's a lot of bad journalism that has come because of the digital disruption. And I think there's an opportunity here. And I look abroad and I see that there are strong brands that do good journalism that seem to be succeeding. And there's a message, I think, that people are willing to pay for, good journalism. I mean, the New York Times is an example. In Britain, The Economist, the Financial Times, Der Zeit in Germany, there are a whole lot of other examples from Europe. But the interesting thing is that it's the good, serious journalism that people are willing to pay for. The stuff that, people are watching in thousands and, and millions and gets Facebook shares, nobody seems to want to pay for. So I think there's a message here, and maybe going forward, this disruption and all the bad journalistic practices that have come from this will actually emerge into something a little more valuable, and people will make a distinction between what's worth paying for and what's not worth paying for. And I hope this happens, and certainly coming from a newspaper which prides itself in being sober and serious and analytical, I hope somewhere down the line, I think our strategy is going to be wanting to make people pay for this. Thank you very much.
So Mukund basically is saying that we do good journalism and then make people pay for that good journalism, right?
In a nutshell, yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
So Raj, I mean, of all the places in the world, in India we see print media circulation is on the rise. Raj Kamal Jha is the editor of the Indian Express. So will you like to share with us, I mean, why is circulation of the print rising in India when in the West it's actually falling?
No, I think one of the reasons could be that there are more and more people now switching to reading and are learning the language. English language is still new, and with every year we see more and more people wanting to read. But I think when we're talking about the challenges to journalism, there are a million challenges, but I will just focus on, I think, one or two. One of the biggest things that has happened in the last 4 to 5 years is that leaders, and I mean leaders and I'm strictly talking about the political establishment and business as well, but that is something else. Most of the politicians now have their own newsrooms. They don't need us. 4 or 5 years ago, they waited for us to make a phone call. They sent us a press release. Now, you find increasingly across the world, more so in South Asia, that They have their own social media accounts. They post their resignations on Facebook before they tell the media. And then they have this army of thousands of people. Many of them do not have names, but they are paid for by the system. And their job is to spread propaganda. They are much faster at it than we are, simply because their numbers are much, much bigger. My newsroom in Delhi, the number of people who cover the central government is about 18. They have 1,800 people. So the one biggest thing that we face is, how do we fact check that fast enough before it becomes an established lie or a truth, whatever the case may be. So they are very good at it, and they are going to get bigger and better at it. And the one thing they have that we don't have, they have the luxury of not being fair. They can say what they want to. They are very, very partisan, and that is their definition. We have tied our hands with the thing, and that is journalism. Fairness and accuracy are the two basics of our job. So I think the biggest thing is, how do we improve ourselves? Given already the challenges that we face of revenue, Mukund was saying, can we make people pay? He's from a very big paper, which makes a lot of revenue. It may work for his paper. It may not work for many of us who have very small circulations, just a fraction of what other papers have. That is one. The second, I think the biggest challenge that we face, and is linked to this, is that wherever you go across the world, there is an increasing fall in our public esteem. More and more readers do not believe us. They abuse us. There's a new term now called mainstream media, as if that is very negative. If you look at the US public discourse now, the 2 or 3 great media institutions which we believe in, most of us in this room, we believe that they do very good work, rank very low in public esteem. The New York Times is being pilloried every day by the man who's just won the election. Every day he used to come on television and say, the New York Times should be shut. It is a terrible paper. Now, with that kind of a discourse, how do we reclaim that we were talking about yesterday? How do we reclaim the space? How do we fight this big meta-journalism, I call it, that, run by politicians and now more and more by CEOs as well, who will have their own army of PR, and they are very good at it. They dictate the news agenda. They decide on who is the guest on the TV show. And I think that's our biggest challenge. Thank you very much.
Well, even, in addition to these irresponsible online platforms, you say, but there is also Google, who basically aggregate content from the rest of the world, basically content produced by you and me and multiple others, and they are actually getting bulk of the revenue, whereas we are not. So may I now go to Europe and turn to Mr. Kari Hutta, diplomatic editor of the Finland's leading daily. Would you like to share with us what's happening in Europe? Why is print media circulation falling in Europe?
Good morning. I'll be happy to do that. I'll start, if you don't mind, from the other side of the Atlantic.
Sure.
This morning I woke up with this sort of sense of unreality, and I thought, is it because I'm in Bangladesh? No, I thought it's not that. It's Trump. We have not come to terms with Mr. Trump.
Sir, can you bring the mic closer to you?
Yeah, we have not come really to terms with Donald Trump being the next president of the United States. It's going to start off a great deal of things which will be challenges and opportunities for journalism. And certainly they do, as we have here as the topic, present and future challenges, is both a present and future challenge. Without speculating too much about what he will actually do, one can already say that the uncertainty he has caused is already having repercussions. There's uncertainty about long-term processes, and that is already resulting in an unwillingness to allocate resources to them. We spoke about this with my Danish colleague Espen this morning already. The changes are starting, they will take place, and there will be huge demand for high quality journalism. Whatever else we can see about Donald Trump's coming administration, it will be something that will call for a great deal of good journalism, and I think it is also something that will make our audience demand good journalism from us. I don't want to pay, otherwise I don't see it necessarily as an opportunity, but there is that. About Europe now, when we look at, it was said also yesterday and now again about the significance of social media for mainstream media, for corporate media. I don't really concur with the view that it's an automatic threat or a challenge, except in the meaning that it threatens certainly the financing of the newsroom. That's true. My newspaper, I'll describe our circumstances a little bit. Finland is a small and fairly homogeneous country with a high degree of readership. We have a population of just below 6 million, but our print circulation has reached at its best over 400,000. It's now around 300,000. We do manage to get today of our subscribers over 50% to pay for digital content. That's exactly, I think, what my colleague from India was saying, that strong brands have an advantage. Market leaders will have an easier time collecting money from their digital content than those who struggle otherwise. But in doing this, we have also asked our readership in various ways, what is it that they want? What is it that digital distribution means to them? And we have come to realize something very fundamental, that there's a misunderstanding that digital platforms are content in itself. That you have print journalism with all of its ramifications, and then you have digital journalism, and it's something entirely different. We have come to realize that this is not the case. And exactly as you said, our readers from our digital content, they do want the click stories. They want to hear about how my girlfriend's boyfriend doesn't understand me and that kind of stuff. But basically what they want exactly the same as they want from print. They want good quality journalism, and I think that means that, especially now that we have the Trump age ahead of us, I see that there are great opportunities and great challenges that good journalism has to meet, both in print and in the digital format, and I don't see them as being two opposed forms of journalism. I think they complement each other. Of course, that there are differences, and I was very interested to hear about the print circulations in Asia. There are differences in the market, but I think the similarities are greater than the differences. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, so basically, good journalism is the answer, right? So implicit in this answer is the question that then, have we been doing bad journalism for all these years? The result of which is that our circulation is dropping. If the anecdote of what is happening is good journalism, then did we actually falter in our journalism? May I ask Mr. Sandy Bremner from BBC Scotland to shed some light on this?
I would hope that BBC journalism falls into the good journalism category rather than the bad. But yeah, there are massive challenges. The situation that you're saying here that we've found in Europe is similar. The demand, the hunger for good journalism, in the sense that newspapers have been failing in Europe. It's principally perhaps because of the demand that readers have to get their content online, to get it immediately. We've seen dramatic change in the newspaper landscape, not to do with bad journalism, but changes in how people access news. One national, very well-established newspaper with excellent journalism closed in the last year and has become an online entity only. The BBC is in the luxurious position of having guaranteed funding. It doesn't depend on commercial structures, yet we have faced a cut of 20% in our funding over the last year. We're making changes. Mukund was speaking earlier about the need to avoid the chasing eyeballs, simply getting stories, building numbers. The BBC is taking the same approach. We are concentrating our digital efforts on perhaps fewer stories done in a more concentrated way, with more analysis behind the stories rather than pure, simple content. But I think it does come back to the fundamental answer to most of our questions, that we need to pursue good journalism at every opportunity, underpinned by the best possible ethics, building trust in our readers and our audiences that they would expect from us.
Thank you. I would like to now turn to my media colleagues in Bangladesh and invite Mrs. Tasmima Hussain, editor of one of our most prestigious daily, the Ittefaq, to perhaps share her views with us.
Thank you, and I thank the visiting delegates from different parts of the world. Hearing them, I was wondering the problem we have with online and with other portal news system, whatever it is. And as I represent from one of the oldest, which has really saw the transition of the technology, and we also see how much we are suffering. But it's a smartphone age, and I think we should have our conversation that how, of course, the gentleman from Hindu has said that whatever the financial difficulties we are facing now, and the print media is giving a lot of losses, where people are getting news from more or less free using. So how can these two combine and still the journalism? It's one of the most noble profession. How can we survive? Because the other gentleman just said that the political, usually we used to read newspaper 40 years back, more for political news and things, but now the world is smaller and we have varieties of things. We also would like to see the more personal interest, like the gentleman from Europe said, how to choose your girlfriend or boyfriend or blah, blah, or a lot of medical solutions. But how do we emulgate all these problems together and still make the journalism a real profession? And how can we make, like this gentleman has just said, that people are learning more English. But what about in our country, where English is spoken by very less people? So we are trying to put our language into the smartphone so we can have all these things. But that takes time, What is the solution? Actually, my question should be to Mr. Mahfouz, and then whether we can come out with the developed nation and people like us, less developed countries, how we can solve this problem. Thank you.
May I request Mr. Manzoor Hassan Bulbul to come in at this stage?
Thank you. I think we are living in a different part of the globe where our friend from India says that the trust has gone out from the mainstream media, but unfortunately or fortunately, in Bangladesh, the most common people trust their media. They have a full confidence on their media. Everything published in the newspaper, right or wrong, they believe it. So there's a different paradigm here. I just would like to put a new scenario which just came in the global media perspective. I'm sure the global media leaders will address on that. just after the US election, what will be the future of the mainstream media? In recent days in Europe or America or Asia, we thought that the media might replace the room of astrology. What media said about the politics, about the election, people take it granted that that has been reflected in the people's mandate. But unfortunately, in latest development in US, especially when we're talking about the New York Times, Washington Post, and other major newspaper, how they reflect the scenario and what practically brings the result is completely opposite. So I'm sure this will be a new and big challenge for the media. I think it practically shows the detachment of the mainstream media with the common people. So we may branded us as the mainstream media, biggest circulated newspaper. We can say that it is the largest watched television channel in the country, but it might not be reflect the common people's pulse. So I'm sure this might be a bigger challenge in coming days around the globe, around the region. So I want to practically listen from our world leaders how to face the challenge, how this credibility could sustain, how the media can practically reflect or understand the common people's pulses. Thank you.
May I at this stage request our friend from Slovakia to come and share his experience as a, from that country's perspective, Mr. Matus.
Matus.
Yeah, Matus.
So, good morning. I will speak from the point of Slovakia and also from the point of the countries around. So, to say from point of Central Europe. So first, there are challenges which I divided into three categories. First one is the challenges maybe much more than we do. It's challenges from the politicians who try to influence the media. I think you have much more to say about it because the worst thing that is happening in Slovakia is when Prime Minister doesn't want to respond to some requests for the questions. So it's not so big, but much more a bigger threat we see in Europe is external threat because we see a threat from countries like Russia. That is the strongest one, who is using his propaganda channels to trying to influence the public view in Slovakia, Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, and also in Baltic countries and in the rest of Europe. Russians are paying some alternative news sites, and they are trying not to change the mind of the people, but put the notion that nothing is black and white, so people will question everything, and they lose the trust in a media that are really trying to find some facts. Because if someone who is not so used to finding the truth and he is just going on Facebook and he looks on the, for example, BBC sites and sees some facts, then he looks on some alternative sites and it's different. He says, okay, no one knows what's the fact, but the fact is facts. And the challenge for journalists in Europe is to fight these attempts to influence the people. I don't know if you have such an experience here in Bangladesh, but maybe in the future you can feel it also. And the next and the third one I wanted to mention is a commercial challenge because I can tell you an example from my daily SME. It had circulation of 80,000 papers sold a day. It was 10 years ago. It may not sound too much, but it's actually one of the biggest in Slovakia. Now it has 30,000 a day. It's still one of the biggest in Slovakia. And we now have to find a way how to monetize the internet news, and that is very hard because advertisers pay thousands of euros per page in a paper, and on the internet it's much more or less, and so we have to find a way how to survive, and still, when you're on internet, you have to be in the first place in Google, have a good head title that catches attention, but still you have to do good journalism if you want to be a good journalist. So we have to find a way to do this together to attract attention and at the same time to do good journalism. And these are challenges for now, for the future, and we will hopefully find some answers. Thank you.